Not so long ago, hunting used to be a passion widely accepted by society. However, in the last decade it has become stigmatized by the media and the anti-hunting groups as one of the most repulsive pastimes. Myself, I am unable to leave these unfounded slanders without a word. I have talked a lot about it in my books and articles, but this time I am going to prove in reality that under the right conditions, it's only hunting that can actually do something for the survival of the wildlife. Over the years, I have experienced that donations and financial help are not at all certain to end up in the right place. However, during one of the Safari Club gala dinners in Las Vegas, I heard a presentation by Ivan Carter, the famous conservationist, on the fight against poaching and on wildlife conservation. I liked his plans, goals, and his way of thinking so much that I immediately offered a more serious sum to his foundation. At the same time, I told that I would be happy to take part with him in activities that would make the local population interested in protecting wildlife. Bela, said Ivan, I would like you to meet a good friend of mine tomorrow morning, Mark Haldane from Mozambique, who shows fantastic results in wildlife conservation. We are going to present this initiative in a huge hunting area where wildlife conservation stands at such a high level today that it could set an example for the whole of Africa. Thanks to their activities, the area almost completely deserted earlier, in just 25 years became a region today which is one of the most abundant in wildlife in Africa.
After a long, exhausting journey from Budapest with a transfer from Frankfurt and from Johannesburg, we arrive in Beira, where Mark Haldane is waiting for us. From here we travel by charter for another hour and a half before we reach our future camp. The coastline of Mozambique is quite extraordinary. Fortunately, this has not yet been discovered by mass tourism. Soon we are flying over the Pungwe River. It's already the edge of Mark's territory. Just a few kilometers from the beach, we are already surprised by the abundance of wildlife seen from above. Water and reedbucks, hartebeests and buffaloes appear everywhere. We've heard a lot about Mark Haldane's exceptionally successful anti-poaching and wildlife conservation activities, his excellent hunting ground, and the successful hunting here that covers the costs of the former. We can't wait to see it all in practice. We are looking forward to some exceptional and inspirational experiences. We wonder curiously what the coming days will bring to us. We are landing on the lawn of the airport area, full of anticipation. In the breakfast area, we admire the excellent game hunting photos on the wall. As special trophies, traps confiscated from poachers also enrich the collection. Mark has an incredibly well-equipped professional team to handle this activity. They are like some counter-terrorism group. Several helicopters and off-road engines are at their disposal. They can intervene at any time. They practically act like a well-trained military detachment. They are constantly taking care of the area, its wildlife and tranquility. And the financial basis for all of this is created by hunting. Just like real commandos, before the action, preparing for any eventuality, they disguise themselves in the way of jungle warriors, so that their sweaty skin will not sparkle in the sunlight, which can become their traitor. Hours pass like this, in tension. A slight smell of smoke was swept towards us by the breeze from somewhere in the bush, and then in the distance we also caught sight of the rising smoke. Eventually the fire they laid became the traitor of the poachers' hideout. The members of the unit carefully surrounded the poachers' haunt. By this time even their conversation could be heard. Then they suddenly ambush. The poachers caught in the act didn't even show resistance. They knew it made no sense. This time it was managed to avoid a more serious conflict. Then the poachers are handcuffed. They are then handed over to the authorities. They put them in custody, but after 2 days, until the proceedings are completed, they are released again. Across Africa, there are 3 well-separable types of poachers. The first type shoots the game without permission, so that his large family and children have something to eat. They cause the least problems. The second category is poaching to obtain large quantities of meat, which he can sell for money on the black market. The third category, fortunately, is quite rare in this region. These are the ruthless poachers who specialize in rhinoceros horns and elephant tusks, which are extremely valuable commodities, raw materials of aphrodisiacs, sought after primarily in the Far East. Poachers specialized in these are the toughest group, determined for everything. There are no rhinos in this area, and there are also very few elephants, so they do not have much conflict with this third type. The traps and snares set by the poachers are also turning up. They were made to collect about 10 to 15 pieces around their camp on an area the size of a football field. These devices kill the animals that step into them with cruel brutality. They have no chance of being released alive. Every year, Mark Haldane takes 50 of the collected traps with him to the SCI convention in Las Vegas, where he offers these special exotic hunting gears to collectors and always sells all to the last piece. The money received in this way is then used to fight against poaching to protect the wildlife and its habitat. Not only are these objects, but also Mark's idea is a real curiosity. This is real wildlife protection. There is also a reedbuck which has just been killed, the wire loop cut deep into the poor animal's neck, causing it to die slowly. In recent years, poachers have wreaked unprecedented havoc across Africa. The most flagrant cases took place where the authorities, usually due to a lack of funds, stopped arming or even further employing park rangers, professional hunters, and hunting services against the poachers. A summary of the 2018 Black Chronicle about the devices found by Zambezi Delta safaris in its territory and the game loss caused by poachers. Spring traps, 921 pieces. Leg hold traps, 63 pieces. Snares, 1,054 pieces. Confiscated spears and machetes, 7 pieces. Poachers arrested, 54. Poachers' hideouts destroyed, 38. Total animals killed, 245. Money made by hunting, the Zambezi Delta Safaris keeps fighting against it, now together with the Bela Hidvegi Hunting Foundation. Driving in the area in the vicinity of man-made areas, the signs and effects of excessive deforestation are immediately apparent. The cut-down trees are used as firewood for charcoal production, while locals try to grow crops on the lands thus obtained. After a year or two, the exploited farmland can no longer contain enough nutrients for the plants. Then more and more areas are burned. The rainforest and its wildlife is shrinking, while the man-made destroyed countryside is expanding continuously. The state of education in the backward parts of Africa is still tragic today. The proportion of young people is extremely high. This places so heavy a burden on governments that they finance more than half of their education expenses from foreign aid. But despite the donations, there is a lack of school children. Only a few children receive regular education because it is surrounded by a lack of interest. The locals believe that education deprives children of the values of their local culture and ethnic traditions. This encourages parents not to send their children to school. The lack or a low number of school buildings, incompetence, or an insufficient number of teachers further increase the range of problems encountered in education in Africa. Children are more likely to never learn to read or write and not move up the social ladder. The health situation is also deplorable. The whole area is covered by waste. This view welcomes us as we head from the school to the local clinic. Malaria mosquito-borne infections cause about 350 to 500 million malaria cases a year, resulting in more than 1 million deaths. And in Africa alone, the annual mortality rate is 25% under 5 years of age. Since its discovery, HIV-related AIDS has killed more than 36 million people. There are currently about 35 million people living with HIV infection in the world, mostly in Africa. Measles is one of the most common infectious diseases. The WHO estimates that 30 to 40 million people get sick with measles each year, and measles was the direct cause of more than half of the 1.7 million child deaths in 2000. And there's tuberculosis, dysentery, diphtheria, yellow fever, dengue fever, Ebola, cholera, smallpox, whooping cough, typhus, tetanus, sleeping sickness, meningitis, various worms, and many other sicknesses. A great many of these deadly diseases could be eradicated by vaccination, appropriate treatment, and adequate medical care. All of these circumstances exist, even though the foundation, led by Mark Haldane, invests a great deal of energy in improving the living and food conditions of the local population. Lack of carbohydrates in the diet of locals is also a source of many health problems. With the support of the Bela Hidvegi Hunting Foundation, the Zambezi Delta Anti-Poaching Foundation has purchased 70 beehives. Most of these hives have already been occupied by bee colonies, which are already working and collecting honey. Thus, the local communities and population can already take advantage of the honey, and besides that, part of it is sold by Mark Haldane's people in the markets, and the resulting revenue is used entirely to fight against poaching. Utilizing bees in this way is an invaluable help to the local population, who can thus cover a significant part of their sugar needs. Mere words, no matter how sublime, fly away and are forgotten, just as money runs out sooner or later. However, the creative ideas and the deeds that follow them, the tangible results of practical work, always remain.
I think the amazing thing about the honey project is our local population, they know bees. They've been working with bees for many years, but not keeping them, just taking them out of the bush. The exciting thing is these hives that UCO so kindly bought for us, the 50 hives that we've distributed, within a few years, this will become a self-sustaining program where the honey will be sold, the villagers will earn some money, and we'll have some money to put back into anti-poaching. So it's an incredible program, and one of the few that will run itself eventually.
I hope that we will be able to follow up this project. Year after year, we invest more and more money.
Thank you.
And in my opinion, the most important thing will be in the future to expand this, because it's no point to have just small area.
Quite right. We need to expand to 1,000 hives. Yeah. That's our aim.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The game shot by hunting guests through professional hunters in Mark's area is utilised to the last bite. Members of local communities, especially children, as is generally the case across Africa, are severely malnourished, which adversely affects their health. There are visibly many sick children here as well. The distribution of game meat involves serious administration. It is substantial that a family must receive no more than 5 kilograms of meat per week, because unfortunately, if they receive more, the head of the family will sell it, so there will be no food for the children. Every other day, the meat of the shot game is distributed in a different village. This serves two purposes. On the one hand, it provides a satisfactory diet for the population of the area. On the other hand, they are deterred from the basic form of poaching in Africa, from illegal meat gathering forced by poverty, subsistence poaching. This way, the head of the family does not have to shoot game to bring food to his starving family, and that is, of course, also spectacularly appreciated by the wildlife. Their populations reproduce properly, and sustainable selective hunting not only produce financial income for wildlife conservation, but also provide fresh meat for the locals. For the time being, everyone is waiting patiently for their head ration. They perform their daily tasks here. The distribution of meat takes place according to a strict method. Everything is documented accurately. This is the only way to avoid different kinds of abuses. First, the oldest, the elderly, and then the mothers with their children take their turn. There are a great many children. In Africa, the crisis was created by drought, originating from climate change, civil war turmoil, and inflation together. 1.4 million children will not survive hunger without aid. The natality figures here are simply astounding to the European eye. In Africa, the current food crisis in the Sahel and Greater Somalia alone threatens 23 million people. Many of them could die of hunger any day. Famine is currently the greatest threat lurking for the human population. Besides providing food for the villages, another large and important task is the resettlement of predators obliterated during the Civil War, especially the lion and the leopard. Originating from some translocated individuals, a new population of lions is being formed. The life and reproduction of the lions, marked and equipped with transmitters, are closely monitored. This has been rewarded within a few years. More and more big cats are now roaming the area.
So this project started about a year ago. The project is called 24 Lions, or Lions 24. And the project started with the idea from Mary and Dan Kabela from the Kabela Family Foundation. And they started with the idea of bringing lions into Cutado 11 here in Mozambique. And this idea then, it was an idea around the campfire, which is where a lot of ideas start in Africa. And this idea then materialized later on with Ivan Carter Wildlife Conservation Alliance joining up with Zambezi Delta Safari. And so there were 24 lions that were brought in, a mix of males and females. All the individuals that were brought in at about 2.5 years old. So they were quite young, with the idea that they would live out their entire lifespan in this area, which is the main goal, is to try and get these animals to survive, follow them, track them, and make sure that they will reproduce, give us some cubs, and the cubs will then carry on that process to the next generations. And the population is growing. We're seeing that there's at the moment 17 confirmed cubs, and 3 females are still have cubs, but we haven't managed to see how many cubs they have. So the population is growing. We're very excited. There have been some ups and downs. We've had 3 male lions that we've lost to some to poaching, so some snares, gin trap, and then one that died of natural causes, which is part of the whole process of trying to establish a population here. Having access to helicopters and helicopter flying time is very, very important. Our area is part of a wetland system, and if it's a wetland system, you usually have a lot of water. So having access to helicopters and being able to fly to have a visual of these lions fairly regularly, at least we'll try and get every individual maybe once a week, which really helps us to understand what's going on with the population, with each individual, and how the population is then growing, checking up on the cubs and all of that.
Two of the 4 helicopters are donated by the Dallas Safari Club, some wealthy American hunters, and Safari Club International, which provides similar assistance in several hunting areas, especially in Africa. Donors also undertake to pay the cost of maintaining and operating the helicopters to help protect African wildlife and effectively combat poaching. The abundance and diversity of the wildlife here is partly their result and success. This also proves that instead of the path of financial aid, which is always unpredictable, it is much more useful and effective to donate the purpose-oriented work equipment and objects necessary for wildlife protection to the right people and organizations. They are the ones who can use these tools in their everyday work, thus helping their very difficult and not always safe activities for the conservation of wildlife, so they are engaged with unconditional commitment. Words fly away and are forgotten, but the result of deeds is a reality whose memory is preserved. Because rationality always resides in action, not in beautiful ideas or what one believes. Our actions are that set things in motion.